here, just to clarify one thing. So these windows that
you go ahead, because you know what you're looking at. So
okay, all right. So the windows on the back of the two south wings that face towards Columbia Street that are highlighted in blue here. The original COA showed those windows in place, but they still needed to get a state variance before they could confirm whether or not those windows were allowed. And they were provided the state variance, so those windows are allowed. So that's the last conditional improvement or approval that you all gave on the original COA. So you're not voting on that, but we wanted to share that information with you just for the record. Okay, then the other things, the new work are the addition, the more details of the rooftop patios, which they referenced in the original COA, but they didn't have the details yet, obviously, at that point as to how or if that would impact the building. So what you see here on this image that's clouded in red is showing a low wall that is a planter wall and also serves as a guardrail. So you can see that up here, and then that would accommodate some very low profile plants, because Andy, as I recall from our COA committee, you mentioned that those plants would be very low profile, nothing tall.
That's correct, John. Yes.
And then on the west face, you also have that same detail here, if you can see my mouse. And then you're only going to see the very end of one of the pergola structures that are on the roof. The other change is that because the elevator that they ended up having to install was larger than they had originally imagined or designed, that requires the loss of two windows, one where this red X is and one below it, which from Main Street you won't even see. So those are the changes on the front that are visible from the front. This plan is just highlighting the changes on the back in red. And that's the second floor. Those are the floor plans. So this is the first floor, which is on the back parking. And in order to accommodate service access to Long Center, which is immediately to the west, they had originally proposed a one-story opening that the delivery trucks could drive under the structure of the building. Might be better visible with this detail. Let's see. This right here. So that's showing it. This shows it also kind of in a perspective sketch. Originally, where that red line is where it was the height, but because of the vertical clearance wasn't adequate for large trucks to get to Long Center, that necessitated the removal of, I believe, 5 apartments on the second floor so that they could actually open that up to a second-story height, or actually all the way up to the bottom of the third floor. So that's the only change. It did not affect the south walls in any way. Those are still going to be constructed as they were originally designed. It's simply the opening pass-through for the large trucks in the back. The other things on these elevations, these are the elevations of those rooftop areas, and it just shows, again, what's highlighted in yellow is what they're building or what they're adding, most of which will not be visible. It's certainly not as visible as what's shown in the elevation because that's a straight-on view. This top sketch is probably the most accurate depiction of what you would actually see. John, I will turn it over to you, or Andy, if you had anything else to add, or Kurt, if you had anything else to add.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
John, I also want to make sure that, please remember, we need to read comments that we received from Indiana Landmarks, Tommy Kleckner.
Kurt, go on ahead.
We also discussed that the planters and the railings are not right on the face of the building, but they're set back past the parapet wall.
Yeah.
So, and as John said, they're way up in the sky there, so it's going to be very hard to see. I did like the way on the south elevation, as I'm looking at sheet H, where they retain those windows on the lower floor, even though there's no apartments there, to let some light into that space. I think that's a good idea. And I will conclude here saying that the COA committee did recommend approval to the full commission.
Great, thanks. Dan, do you have anything you want to add?
Just again to emphasize what Kurt said, you know, that those the planters are behind the parapet wall, and that the owner doesn't intend to put big tall plants there or viney plants that are going to hang down. So that, I think that's an important issue. Just to emphasize that. I think we've talked about it, but just to emphasize it. So
Okay, great. And Andy, do you want to add anything or talk a little bit?
I don't really need to belabor it. I would say that I agree with everything that's been stated tonight. It was all accurate in terms of the prior discussions and conversations.
Okay, great.
And then
And John, do you want to read this? Or do you want me to?
actually, can you see it all? Because, and can you read it? Because I'm half of it's being cut off because of all my things on the screen.
Yeah, I can see it. I'll go on ahead and read it.
Okay.
All right, this is from Tommy Kleckner of Indiana Landmarks. And he wrote to John, I understand the COA committee, the Lafayette Historic Preservation Commission, has met already to provide a favorable recommendation for the minor modifications outlined in the COA submitted for 631 Main Street Development Project. Despite the pending recommendation, I wish to provide comment on the COA, and in particular, the proposed placement of the below planter wall, guardrail, and pergola along the parapet of the structure's Main Street facade. In absence of a more substantial cornice, which would provide better screening of these proposed rooftop features, I ask both the HPC and the developer to give serious considerations to moving the low planter wall and guardrail back in line with the north facade plane of the elevator tower. This setback would substantially eliminate the visibility of these two features from public view on the front facade, while still allowing for what appears would be more than an adequate rooftop terrace outdoor lounge area. Pushing the planter wall and guardrail back would also move the small northeast pergola structure back, thus further reducing its visibility from the public view along Main Street. I certainly understand the developer's desire to provide rooftop amenities for building residents, but direct views down to Main Street shouldn't be necessary. At a level 6 stories above Main Street and several stories above nearly all other structures in the immediate area, residents and guests will still have unparalleled views of downtown, even if the low planter wall and guardrail back are moved back in the front parapet of the building, as I proposed. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this agenda item. I ask that you convey my thoughts to the HBC. Best regards. All right, and I don't know if Kurt or Andy or anybody wants to address those comments.
I see, I'm looking at sheet E right now. It appears to be relatively narrow at that spot. Andy, I imagine that's why you pushed it as far to the north to Main Street as you could.
Which I'm sorry, I'll go there.
Sheet E. E.
Okay. I gotta move this stuff. There we go.
I see a thing that says pergola structure 6 by 6, post and beam stained, I guess that's color. Cedar purlins or that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how deep that pergola is. That's kind of in the middle of the patio area. I can see what you're doing along the Main Street planter wall. Is you're getting some furnishings there or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
But Andy, my question for you, Andy, is by moving the planter wall away from Main Street, would that make that pergola unusable?
It would, and it would really make a pretty dramatic impact on the feel of the space up there. It would make it pretty long and skinny all of a sudden. We did put consideration into the right scale to use for the rooftop to give it a comfortable feel for the residents there. So we really would like to keep it where it is. We think we've made it low profile enough that it won't be obnoxious, and it'll, to the extent it is noticed, could show some vibrancy downtown and some interest, but nothing out of line.
Hey, Kurt.
Yes.
If I could, I mean, John Collier, you pointed out earlier that, when we look at these straight on images, it can be a little misleading because it's going to be from the street. So anything we're going to see is going to have to already get past the cornice that's already there. So after you reviewed that, I don't really think it's going to be all that visible.
No, I do agree with you. I thought that letter was going to say, why don't you do something different with the cornice, but that wasn't the case. And yes, it may be visible. You may see the top of the rail, but it can't be seen that much. I don't know. It's hard for me to vision it, but it is, like you said, 5 stories up. So
The perspective on sheet A, I mean, yeah, you just see the top of the planting wall and the plants over the top of the cornice. So
yeah,
that perspective shows really kind of what you're seeing from the street. Now, the farther you go down the street, the more you're going to see of that up there. But from across the street, you're not going to see much.
Okay, great. Is there any other questions or comments from anybody?
So in your opinion, Dan, that's not a overbearing or with the plant wall and rail?
I mean, right now the planter wall kind of looks like I'm going to say a recessed parapet wall, maybe just something else. And that's where I don't want too much of I don't think we should have too much of the plantings going. If it looks like a green garden up there, then yes, that would change the appearance. But if it's just if it looks like a recess and extension of the parapet wall, then I don't think it'll be too obtrusive. Again, we don't have how it's going to look from a block down the street, what you're going to see from that angle. But I just wouldn't want a bunch of plants sticking up there, palm trees hanging over. You're not going to do that, are you, Andy? No palm trees?
No palm trees. I don't think they'll do so well here.
He's not going to open a cheeseburger in paradise up there.
No.
No
Some
sweet
banana
corn either.
trees, some palm
Well, as
trees.
I mentioned, I think I mentioned at the committee meeting, the idea with the plants is to, number one, soften it up so it's not so harsh up there on the rooftop, but also to keep people from sort of leaning into and leaning over the parapet wall, or the planter wall, I guess, in this case. So I don't think you'll see the railing at all. Like it was mentioned, I think if anything, you'll see the planter wall, which will, really could look like part of the parapet, because it's going to be pretty far away, and then you'll probably see a little bit of the greenery above, but it's not going to be a large mass of greenery, because that would take a much more substantial base to hold anything like that, and that's not the plan at all.
And Andy, if I think we also talked at the COA committee meeting, I think you mentioned that you would even be willing not to make it something viney that would hang down over the face of the building. Is that right?
Correct. That is correct. Yeah.
I like what the petitioners said, that it'll keep people away from the edge. Obviously, safety first priority there.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Kevin. And a second.
I'll second it, Glenn Vick.
Thanks, Glenn. When I call your name, please state how you vote. Sean?
Sean votes yes.
Glenn?
Glenn votes yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Shauna,
Yes.
Patty,
I'm a yes, John. This is Patty.
Amy,
Yes.
and Kurt.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you very much, Andy. 631 Main
I'm
Street.
sorry,
those-
I'm going to interject real quickly. Patty, I just have to think, would you mind actually recusing yourself from that vote?
Not at all, John. I meant to ask you about that before tonight and my day just kind of fell apart.
That's all right.
So for the record, yes, I recuse myself from the vote on 631.
Great. Thanks, Patty.
Very good. If I could just say thanks, to this group for the consideration. I know we had, we had a more difficult meeting earlier in 2020, and I'm really happy we were able to, take some of the comments that were made, and I feel like we've really improved the look of this building a lot, and I think it's going to. I think we have a much better design now based on the feedback we got from this group, and just wanted to share that we appreciate that, and look forward to seeing this come up.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I wanted to make that known too, that I can tell that there have been changes done since we saw this last spring, and I think it's really come a long way and looks great.
I agree with John. This design is not only, sensitive, I think it's going to really contribute to the streetscape through there, not just now, but 20, 30, and 50 years down the road.
Great.
Good.
Okay.
My son Tommy saw a picture of it and said it looks cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you, Andy. You don't need to stay on any longer. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay.
And
Then
Kurt.
Thank you.
Kurt.
Bye.
Yes, we do. We reviewed one more project, 826 Main Street. This building was vandalized a few weeks ago. I think everybody's heard about that. And that is going to necessitate replacing the east side of the entryway. It's not really a vestibule. It's more of just a recessed entryway. That's what I wanted to say here. Dan will go into more detail on this, but the existing storefront windows and window framing is not original. I will point out a few things to the committee or to the commission here. They are proposing a Conair 451T type system, which I'm very familiar with, which will accommodate 1-inch insulated glass. But they're only doing it on the east side, not the west side. I'm looking at the sheet called Details, which is after sheet A106.
Is that this one, Kurt?
I can't see it, but it says detail on the top, and it has a little plan on it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just some information for the commission that the corner piece marked number 2, the existing is 1.5 inches and by 1.5 inches in lieu of 5 inches. The details number 1 and 4 are only 1 inch existing as opposed to 2 inch, and detail number 3, which is the middle mullion, is not existing at this time. We understood why the applicant was requesting a brand new system, given the old one is very hard to work with and can't accommodate the insulated glass. And Dan can get into this, but I'll continue here, that I was very uneased about the east side being one type of storefront design and the west side being another type of storefront design. So with conversations with the applicant, we decided that the east side could be this Conair 451 system in any color other than silver. And then the west side would have wood trim applied to the existing window frames on the exterior, which matched the dimensions of the new window frames and was painted the same color. Based on those decisions and Dan's report, the committee did recommend approval.
And Steve Snyder is on the call. Steve, if you have anything else you want to add, please jump in. Petitioner.
Yeah, I think everything was covered, to be honest with you. And what we can make the west side look just like the east side with some trim and the like-minded paint. And of course, as a cost-saving measure, we're proposing to do one side as opposed to doing both sides, obviously to save a little money. But we could definitely match those out and make them look identical.
Good. Thank you. Did you have anything else to add?
No, just as Kurt said, well, the storefront, it's old, but it's not original to the building, and so replacing the damaged portion and going back to with the wider mullions is more of the typical of the age of the building, so that's appropriate. And then covering up the existing fabric on the other side so that you're similar. One, that saves the old storefront, not original, but older storefront. But yet then from the overall look, kind of helps things match. Again, a storefront may be more appropriate to the age of the building. So.
All right, great. Does anybody else have anything to add? Any questions, comments? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, you have a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second, John.
Great. Thanks, Patty. All right, all those, when I call your name, please signify how you vote. Sean?
Sean votes yes.
Glenn?
Glenn votes yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
And I saw Amy had to leave the meeting. She typed in she was supportive. And Kurt?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. All right. That's approved for 831 Main Street.
Right.
826.
826. Thank you. I knew that was right. Great. Thanks a lot, Steve. Next
Thank
up
you, everybody.
is the staff report. John?
Kevin, you're looking well, by the way.
I do not have a report. I don't think. Sorry, I'm distracted here by trying to get this thing going the right direction. Other than to say I will continue to look for other education opportunities and will share those with folks as I come across them. But thank you all for those of you who have attended those in the past.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
John, real quick,
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank all the homeowners that have designated their properties. None of it's possible without them, so I just wanted to extend my thanks.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. You have a motion for adjournment, Mr. Burns, if you need it.
Very good. All right. All those in favor say aye.
You get a second?
Second.
Well, who seconded for me?
I first. I was the one.
All right. And
Kurt will second.
thanks,
There you
Kurt. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye, unless we need to do a roll call.
Yeah, roll call, John, I guess.
Okay. Sean,
Sean votes yes.
Glenn,
Glenn votes yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Donna,